There was little evidence that Demosthenes was destined to become the greatest orator of Athens, let alone all of history. He was born sickly and frail with a nearly debilitating speech impediment. At 7 years old, he lost his father, and then things got worse. The large inheritance left to him, intended to pay for tutors and the best school, was stolen by the guardian entrusted to protect him. They refused to pay his tutors, depriving him of the education he was entitled to. Still weak and sick, Demosthenes was also unable to distinguish himself in other distinct Demosthenes was also unable to distinguish himself in the other critical sphere of Greek life, the floor of the gymnasia. Here was here was this fatherless, effeminate, awkward child who no one understood, who everyone laughed at, not exactly the boy you'd expect would soon hold the power to mobilize a nation to war by his voice alone. Disadvantaged by nature, abandoned by the people he depended on, disadvantaged by nature, abandoned by the people he depended on. Nearly every wrong that can be inflicted on a child befell Demosthenes. None of it was fair, none of it was right. Most of us were, most of us, were we in his position, would have given up right then and there, but Demosthenes did not. Stuck in his young mind was the image of a great orator, a man he'd once witnessed speaking at the court at Athens. This lone individual, so skilled and powerful, had held the admiration of the crowd, who hung on his every word for hours, subduing all opposition with no more than the sound of his voice and strength of his idea. It inspired and challenged Demosthenes, weak, beaten on, powerless, and ignored. For in many ways, this strong, confident speaker was the opposite of him. So he did something about it. To conquer his speech impediment, he devised his own strange exercise. To conquer his speech impediment, he devised his own strange exercise. He would fill his mouth with pebbles and practice speaking. He rehearsed full speech into the wind, or while running up steep inclines. He learned to give entire speech with a single breath, and soon his quiet, weak voice erupted with booming, powerful clarity. Demosthenes locked himself away underground, literally in dugout. He had built in which to study and educate himself. To ensure he wouldn't indulge in outside distraction, he saved half his head and he saved half his head so he'd to be embarrassed to go outside, and from that point forward he dutifully descended each day into his study to work with his voice, his facial expression, and his arguments. When he did venture out, it was to learn every it was to learn when he did venture out, it was to learn even more. Every moment, every conversation, every transaction was an opportunity for him to improve his art, all of it aimed at one goal: to face his enemies in court and win back what had been taken from him, which he did. When he came of age, he finally when he came of age, he finally filed against when he came of age, he finally filed suit against the negligent guardian who had wronged him. They evaded his effort and hired their own lawyers, but he refused to be stopped. Flexible and creativity, flexible and creative, he matched them suit for suit and delivered countless speech, confident in his new state, confident in his new strength, driven on by his own toil. They were no match. Demosthenes eventually won. Only a fraction of the original inheritance remained, but the money had become secondary. Demosthenes' reputation as an orator, ability to command a crowd, and his fearless knowledge of the intricacy of the law was worth more than whatever remained of a once great fortune. Every speech he delivered made him stronger. Every day that he stuck with it, every day with he stuck with it made him more determined. He could see through bullies and stare down fear. In struggling with his unfortunate fate, Demosthenes found his true calling. He would be the voice of Athens, its great speaker and conscience. He would be successful precisely because of what he'd been through, because of what he'd been through, and he would be success, he would be successful precisely because of what he'd been truly he would been through and how he'd reacted to it. He had channeled his rage and pain into his training and then later into his speech, fueling it all with a kind of fierceness and power that could be neither matched nor resisted. Some academic once asked Demosthenes what the three most important traits of speech making were. His replies say it all: action, action, action. Sure, Demosthenes lost the inheritance he had been born with, and that was unfortunate. But in the process of dealing with this reality, he created a far better one that could never be taken from him. But you, when you are dealt with, but you, when you are dealt a bad hand, what's your response? Do you fold, or do, or do you play it for all you got? There's an explosion, metamorphic or otherwise. Are you the guy running toward it or running away from it? Or worse, are you paralyzed and do nothing? This title, this little taste of character say everything about us. And it's sad that so many of us fell opting away from action because action is natural in it. You trip and fall right now. Your body instinct protect you. You extend your hands to break your fall so you don't break your face. In a vicious accident, you go into shock but still manage to get your arms up around your face. That's where the term defensive wounds come from. We don't think, we don't complain, we don't argue, we act. We have real strength, more strength than we know. But in our own, but in our lives, when our worst instincts are in control, we dally. We don't act like Demosthenes. We act frail and are powerless to make ourselves better. We may be able to articulate a problem, even potential solution, but then weeks, month, or sometime year later, the problem is still there, or it's gotten worse, as though we expect someone else to handle it, as though we honestly believe that there is a chance of unobstacling themselves. We've all done it. Said, I am so overwhelmed, tired, stressed, busy, blocked, outmatched. And then what do we do about it? Go out and party, or treat ourselves, or sleep it, or wait. It feels better to ignore or pretend, but deep down deep down that isn't going to truly make it any better. You got to act, and you up, and you got to start now. We forget in life it doesn't matter what happened to you or where you came from. It matters what you do with what happened and what you are and you what you've been given. And the only way you'll do something spectacular is by using it all to your advantage. People turn shit into sugar all the time. Shit, that's a lot worse than whatever we are dealing with. I'm talking physical disabilities, racial discrimination, battle against overwhelmingly superior armies. But those people didn't quit. They didn't feel sorry for themselves. They didn't delude themselves with fantasies about easy solution. They focused on the one thing that mattered, applying themselves with gusto and creativity, born with born with nothing, into poverty, strife, or the chaos of the decade past. Certain type of people were freed from modern notion of fairness or good or bad, because none of them none of it applied to them. What was in front of them was all they knew, all they had, and instead of complaining, they worked with it. They made the best of it because they had to, because they didn't have a choice. No one wants to be born weak or to be victimized. No one wants to be down to their last dollar. No one wants to be stuck behind an obstacle, blocked from where they need to go. Such circumstances are not impressed by perception, but they are not indifferent or rather immune from action. In fact, that's the only thing this situation will respond to. No one is saying you can't take a minute to think, damn it. This, by all means, vent, excel, take stock, just don't take too long because you have to get back to work. Because each obstacle we overcome makes us stronger for the next one. But no excuse, no exception, no way around it. It's on you. We don't have the luxury of running away, of hiding, because we have something very specific we are trying to do. We have an obstacle. We have an obstacle. We have to learn into and transform. No one is coming to save you. And if you'd like to go where we claim we want to go, to accomplish what we claim are our goals, there is only one way, and that's to meet our problem with the right action. Therefore, we can always and only greet our obstacle with energy, with persistence, with a coherent and deliberate process, with a coherent and deliberate process, with iteration and resilience, with pragmatism, with strategic vision, with craftiness and savvy, and an eye for opportunity and pivotal moment. And are you ready to get to work? Are you ready to get to work?